So throughout the many Ben 10 shows and alternate realities, we've actually seen a hell of a lot of different variations of the Omnitrix itself. Like, we've seen so many at this point that honestly, prior to making this video, I couldn't even name them all. Which is why I've decided to go through and not only name each and every one of them in this video, but also explain and break down everything we know about them at this moment in time. So with that said, and without wasting any more of your time, let's just jump right into it with the first watch ever seen in the Ben 10 universe, and the watch that quite literally started this incredible journey for each and every one of us. It's none other than the OG Omnitrix from the Ben 10 classic TV show. Now this watch is easily one of the most recognized items in pretty much any cartoon ever, with even people who've never seen the show having seen this watch at least once. But now of course, aside from all of that, in the beginning, this watch was created by Azimuth and was later sent to Earth in search of Max Tennyson. However, due to the fact that he was getting railed by Philgax during the delivery, it actually ended up landing in front of Ben Tennyson, Max's grandson and the hero that we all know and love today. And while it's obviously understood that at this time Ben only had access to 10 aliens, the watch itself actually housed an undetermined amount of samples inside of it, with Azimuth species, the Galvan aliens, being stated to be one of the first to ever be placed inside. But now it should also be mentioned that alongside its incredible power to turn you into insanely cool aliens, this Omnitrix, being the prototype that it was, also housed a hell of a lot of bugs, issues and malfunctions, as well as some incredibly inconvenient safeguards that Azimuth himself put in place to protect not only the user, but also the entire universe itself. Oh, and while we're on the topic of the Omnitrix creation and design, the Omnitrix symbol itself, located on pretty much every one of these watches, is also considered the intergalactic symbol of peace, which is just a fun little fact that does relate to each and every one of these watches that share this symbol. But now as for the watch's mechanics, use and abilities, well, like we previously mentioned, it allows the user to become a wide variety of different alien creatures, with each and every one of them being incredibly different and possessing incredibly different but just as strong skill sets. And in fact, the user of this watch can remain in that alien form for up to 10 minutes at a time, with a cooldown that lasts around just 5 minutes. However, this time frame does change quite a bit depending on the certain rules of use, as if you are continuously switching between alien forms, the time and the length of how long you can remain in that alien form shortens quite a bit, to the point that you might only remain in your alien form for up to 3 minutes at a time, which is an incredibly short amount of time when you have to defeat an alien creature such as Philgax. But now the reason this cooldown exists in the first place is to prevent the user and the DNA sample from merging together, as it is stated that if the user remains in alien form for a long period of time, it is likely that issues in the DNA may start to arise. Although at this time no evidence is ever really seen for this, and it's just kind of an in-universe explanation for why Ben seems to transform back into his human form at the worst possible moments. But now, whilst talking about the cooldown, its design is basically the same as the base design of the watch, except for the fact that the Omnitrix symbol changes from the standard green to a red color, highlighting that the watch is currently inactive and unable to be used. But now, while this recharge is incredibly inconvenient and honestly quite dangerous for the user at times, it does however have a workaround that is placed within it. And that's the fact that if the user themselves is in mortal danger and the watch senses that they might possibly die, it can reset itself completely in that moment and allow the user to become any of the aliens inside, to hopefully aid in the situation that they have found themselves in, which is actually quite a good safeguard for the watch to have. But now as for the next design and function of this watch, well, we have the watch's ability to scan and register new DNA and add it to its collection. You see, in the scene, we can see that new DNA is getting placed within the watch. The watch's interface then turns yellow as it scans the DNA to determine if it is alien in origin, at which point it would then be added to the collection and the user can then use that DNA sample to become that newly added alien. However, in the case that the new DNA sample is already inside the watch, Ben can actually gain access to that new alien by just being around it for a long period of time, which is an incredibly cool and interesting aspect of the watch, and something that would immediately have me going around chatting to all different types of aliens to hopefully gain access to them all. But now up next, and quickly moving on, we have the self-destruct mode, which we can all agree is by far the most stupid addition to any device and watch that we have ever seen. It was first introduced in the Secrets of the Omnitrix movie and exists as a function of the Omnitrix that is used to make sure that it never ends up in the wrong hands. It is seen in that movie as an energy buildup that begins a countdown to the point that it is going to explode. An explosion that we're also told wouldn't just wipe Ben off the map, but would also destroy the entire universe itself. And like we said earlier, we are told that this is placed as a safeguard inside the watch to make sure that no one like Philgax ever gets their hands on it. Which again, at least to me, still seems like an incredibly stupid reason to add something so dangerous. Like, say he did manage to get his hands on it. What are we then going to do with this self-destruct function? Use it to blow up the entire universe itself so that he can never take it over? Like, am I the only one that really sees this as a counterproductive option? Like what, destroy it so that he can never destroy it? Shit makes no sense. But anyway, throughout the movie, Ben is told that while it is in this self-destruct mode, the more he uses the watch, the closer it will become to exploding and destroying everything around him. However, as we've seen throughout the movie in standard Ben fashion, this didn't stop him from using it a number of times to become a hero and save the day. But now, aside from its overuse by Ben, we're also told that if it doesn't get fixed, the watch itself will blow up in just a few days, which really doesn't give you a lot of time to go find Azimuth and get it fixed. Now, as for the self-destruct mode's design, it is one with the same base, but with its green face now resembling an orange and yellow coloring that is also ticking and blinking like a timer, alerting both us the viewer and Ben on how long he actually has left before he explodes. But now following this, the next time we get one of these new modes is in fact in the Alien Force TV show, when Ben dons the watch for the first time in quite a while. Here we see the face symbol on the watch begin to flash blue, beginning what we now call the reconfiguration mode, which is basically a mode that alters the watch's size and shape to fit the new user's size and wrist. It's a mode that's not really all that useful, but is a cool aspect to watch when you're watching the show. But now, aside from that, the new Omnitrix's design also brought with it a whole new selection of aliens, while also sadly removing access to the old ones, which is something I never truly understood from an in-universe point of view, but is one that happened, so let's just move on. Now, his new look is one of a smaller and more sleek design, with an overall coloring that is predominantly green in color rather than the previous black and grey. It's a design that is very fitting to the more mature tone of this series and a more mature looking Ben. But now, aside from the differences to its base, the interface of the alien selection also gets altered in an incredibly cool looking way, as now it's a much more clearer looking interface where we can actually see the entire alien itself that Ben is about to select, which honestly was an addition to the watch that made this design one of my favorites of all time. But now, alongside this new design comes a new DNA scanner, with the new scanner no longer needing Ben to make contact with the aliens at all, and rather just allows him to scan the alien with a yellow laser from a distance, which again wasn't incredibly needed, but is a highly appreciated design choice that I myself just love way more than the prototype version. But now, following the Alien Force watch, we have the best Omnitrix in the Ben 10 universe, at least in my opinion. It's of course the Ultimatrix. Now, the Ultimatrix can basically do everything the Alien Force watch can do, but also take any of the Alien Force aliens and transform them into ultimate versions, which basically makes those aliens a bigger, faster, stronger of the version they used to be, and in some cases even adjusting their powers to fit their newly formed aesthetic. And while this can be used on any alien inside the watch, it is sadly only ever seen and used on a small amount of Ben's aliens seen throughout the entire series. But now, alongside all those cool features and additions, the Ultimatrix also comes with an incredible amount of bugs and issues just like the previous prototype, with the most apparent and most morally problematic issue of all being the ultimate alien sentience. But now, to discuss all of that and to explain the entire issue around the ultimate alien sentience would just take up way too much of the time in this video, so we're going to have to just dedicate an entire video to that at some point in the future. So be sure to subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss that explanation when it finally drops. But now, as for the Ultimatrix overall design, well, we actually have two different variations to speak of. The first is of course Albedo's version, and the second will be of course Ben's Ultimatrix. Now, Albedo's watch is basically a larger scale Omnitrix that covers a large portion of the user's forearm. It's predominantly red in colour but has hints of black scattered all around it, with the most apparent change from the regular Omnitrix being that the iconic symbol in the middle that is normally green is now Albedo's colour of red, which I guess is just to signify the evil nature surrounding his character. But now, as for the second variation of this watch, which is of course Ben's Ultimatrix, well, this watch is basically designed the exact same way, just wherever there was red on Albedo's watch, there is now Ben's standard green colouring. Oh, and a very important piece of information I just forgot to mention earlier is that for Ben to use the Ultimatrix to its full potential, he has to first turn into one of his aliens and then press the symbol located somewhere on his alien body, at which point he would then become the ultimate version of whatever alien he was currently using. Aside from that, it also has a fuck ton of small little features that are just scattered all around it, such as a GPS, a communicator, and a translator, as well as several other small aspects that aren't really important at this precise moment in time. But now, later on in the show, when Ben finally proves himself as truly worthy of the Omnitrix, Azimuth finally grants him a completed version of it, which of course is when we get the Omnitrix that is seen throughout the Omniverse TV show, which is also considered by many in the community as the worst Omnitrix that we have ever had. Not because it is weaker than any of the others or anything like that, but simply because it looks a lot shittier than any of the others that we have previously mentioned. For see, while it shares a similar size and design to the Alien Force watch that we mentioned earlier, this one also has a more square design shape rather than the circular one that we're so used to seeing. But even more than that, the improved interface that we got with the Alien Force watch has now been altered to look even worse than even the basic prototype back in Ben 10 Classic. You see, instead of getting to see the entire outline of the alien that Ben is about to pick like in Alien Force, we now only get to see the face of the alien that Ben is about to pick, which is incredibly shit when you compare this to any of the other watches that came before, as they were so much clearer and better to look at. But now, aside from this watch being incredibly hated by the community, it does however also have a couple of good aspects included in it. With the first and potentially best aspect being that you can remain in hero form for a lot longer than any of the other watches. And second, this watch also comes with a safeguard feature that allows you to lock the watch so that no one else other than you can access it. Which I would just like to point out is a hell of a lot more convenient and better than the self-destruct safety feature that we had before. Oh, and it also has a built-in safety feature that will turn Ben into whatever alien he needs to survive if his life is considered in extreme danger by the watch itself. Which again, I would just like to point out is potentially the safest and best feature in any watch that we have ever seen up to this point. But now, following that watch and staying in the Omniverse universe, the next watch that we have to speak of is the Nemetrix, which was a watch that was created by Dr. Sokobos and is basically just a knockoff version of the original Omnitrix and an extremely limited device that only allows its user to become non-sapient beings, while also being incredibly limited to who its user can actually be, being that only non-sapient beings such as animals or other animalistic life forms can actually wield this watch in the first place. This is of course due to the fact that any sapient life form cannot actually handle the savage feral nature of the Nemetrix aliens, being that they're all incredibly ferocious and incredibly taxing on the user's mental state. However, aside from that, the Nemetrix also grants its user a similar Ultimatrix form in the later variations of this watch. Which, even though this wasn't how we'd like that aspect of the show to return, it was still a fairly cool re-edition of the Ultimatrix form in some way or another. But now, at this point in the video, we're going to jump over to the lesser true variations of the Omnitrix, as well as talk about the many different alternate universes of this watch, and the different variations that we saw the many other Bens using throughout the series. So of course, with that said, up first we have the Unitrix, or as she later gets called, Eunice. Now, Eunice is of course the prototype before the prototype Omnitrix, and a device that has the power to absorb, contain, and use any DNA that it desires. And while it of course can appear as a cute girl after getting human DNA inside of it, its base form is actually more akin to a small container, that also in fact possesses the same core power source as the Omnitrix and the Ultimatrix. Now, this device also possesses the same limitation as the other watches, with that same time frame still being in effect. But what does make it more unique than the other devices is the fact that this device actually has the power to take one form and utilize the abilities of all the others, as was seen with the case when Eunice was in human form, while also using the hopping abilities of the rabbit that she was of course holding. And while many in the community do actually forget about her existence in the show, I do still consider her by far one of the most powerful and dangerous devices in the entire Ben 10 universe itself. For you see, some people in the community have theorized over time that with her potential to scan, absorb, and use other alien DNA samples without having to become the alien itself, she could very well scan and use Alien X's powers without having to deal with any of that annoying spacehead bullshit. She would just need to be around one of these aliens to do so, which of course, if true, like I said before, easily makes her one of the most broken aliens or devices in the entire universe itself. But now of course that entire theory and aspect of this overall device itself might actually deserve its own video at some point in time, so I'm going to leave the explanation about her there, as I might want to touch on it a bit later. But now of course, with that said, I just want to jump back over to the classic series just for a little bit, as the next variation of Omnitrix that I want to speak of is the Omnitrix that was of course seen in the Sumo Slammers video game, which again isn't really a true standalone Omnitrix, but is more of a variation of the already explained basic prototype. But again, as this video is about explaining every Omnitrix seen in the show, it does need to be mentioned at least once or twice in this video. So with that said, the Sumo Slammers Omnitrix is given to Ben after he uses upgrade to enter the game. Here we see that the watch itself actually has no aliens inside of it. However, after progressing through the game, Ben slowly collects and becomes each of the aliens along the way, with some of them, mainly forearms, getting their own outfit and weapon upgrade along the way. And again, while there isn't much to say about this watch overall, it does however have its own unique design that does again need to be mentioned. It's a design that fits an Asian aesthetic of the Sumo Slammers game, and one that appears as a samurai arm guard that covers Ben's entire forearm. And while this is completely off topic, I do want to quickly ask each of you what your opinion on this episode actually is, as I was thinking about it while making this video that it might actually be one of my favorite episodes of all time, as it was simply just an enjoyable watch when I was growing up as a child. But again, I would like to know each of your takes on this entire weird episode, as it was kind of just a random one thrown into the show way back when. But now to just quickly get back on topic, next we have Ben 10,000's Omnitrix, which again is basically just a version of the Omnitrix that was seen in one of Ben's possible futures. However, once again, it is another incredibly cool watch, and one that might potentially be the most powerful Omnitrix that we have ever seen, as the Omnitrix 10,000 is basically the same as all the others, except for the fact that it allows you access to 10,000 different alien DNA samples. as well as also allowing Ben 10,000 the ability to continuously switch between aliens and stay inside alien form for as long as he so desires. It was a watch that was incredibly underutilized throughout the show, and one that really deserved more attention than just one singular episode way back in the Ben 10 classic show. But now, while on the topic of future Bens, I do also want to talk about and mention the Biomnitrix, which is essentially a dual Omnitrix system that Ben 10,000 developed to allow him to fuse multiple DNA samples at the same time, creating never before seen combinations and expanding the possibilities for what Ben and his aliens can actually do going forward in the show. And while we have explored this watch a little over the course of the show, the exact limitation and potential around it is still widely unexplored and something I still hope to this day we see once again at some point in time. But now, as for the many different alternate reality Omnitrixes, well, as there isn't a hell of a lot to say about them, I'm going to go through this explanation and breakdown of each and every one of them as quickly and as concisely as possible. So with that said, up first we have the Negatrix, which is a negative version of Ben's Omnitrix and a watch that belongs to Nega Ben. Again, a negative version of Ben from an alternate reality. The watch itself, like many of the other watches we're about to mention, does exactly the same thing as the regular Omnitrix that we're used to seeing, just this watch itself does also turn each and every one of the aliens that we see within it into a negative version of each and every one of them, with them all appearing darker than their regular versions. Following this, we have Bad Ben and Benzarro, again sharing similar traits to our Ben and his watch, except for in Benzarro's case where that version of Ben is actually an infected zombie from an outbreak inside his own dimension. This outbreak does also affect his aliens, which is an incredibly interesting aspect of his character. Following this, we have Ben 23 and Mad Ben, who again share all the same traits as our Ben and our Ben's watch, except for the fact that each of their aliens also possess a unique look and design to their overall characters. But now following them and ending us off, we have Gwen 10, who's basically a version of Gwen Tennyson that comes from a reality where she herself found the watch instead of Ben. Again, the watch itself and the aliens she can become are basically the same as our Ben's, except for the case in their design, which appears to be a more feminine look rather than the male design that we're used to seeing. But now, of course, I think that's going to do it for every important and semi-important Omnitrix that we have seen throughout the Ben 10 universe. I do hope you all enjoyed today's video, as I really enjoyed revisiting each and every one of these watches, as it really brought me back to the days of watching Ben 10 just after school got out. If you'd like more videos like this in the future, then please like the video down below and consider subscribing while you're there. But for now, and with all that said, I do hope you all have a great day or night wherever you are, and peace.